Good evening, Booktopians. We are now live with none other than Richard Glover. Richard, welcome to Booktopia TV Live.
And please welcome Clancy. Where is he? There you go. Hi, Clance.
Hi, Clancy.
Hey, Clancy. It's Mark.
Hi. The man of, well, the dog of the hour.
The dog of the moment.
Dog of the moment, that's it. And I was going to introduce you as the author of Love Clancy, but you're actually the editor and debater of Love Clancy.
That's right. So the book is his letters home to his folks in the country, and each letter ends with a sort of note back from me, sometimes disputing his accounts. Sometimes I think he's an unreliable narrator. Sometimes I'm on his side and think he's spot on. But yes, there's always a response to the claims that are made about his eccentric city household and all the things he has to put up with.
Now, we also will be taking questions from the audience tonight, and so for anybody who's watching and has a question for Richard or for Clancy, or if your pet has a question for Clancy, if any of the dogs would like to have a go, we are all ears, and we have a fabulous prize for the best question.
So, Kathy Wilcox, the fantastic Sydney Morning Herald cartoonist, did all the illustrations for the book. So this is actually signed by me, more importantly, signed by her. And this is just one of the great illustrations. But she does do a fantastic dog, that does Kathy Wilcox. And so there are some fantastic dogs. And I actually sent her, it's very accurate, this book. One of my great pleasures, actually, is that in the publishing world, things are divided into fiction and non-fiction by the authorities, and this book is non-fiction. So, there's nothing fanciful about a dog's letters home. I just love the fact that it's up there with Peter Cosgrove's autobiography and, Fitzsimon's account of the Boer War. Non-fiction. And I agree with that assessment because it is very accurate. I actually took, he's got these friends in the park, particular dogs that he's friends with, and I actually took photographs with the owner's permission, of course, took photographs of all the dogs and submitted them to Kathy. So when he writes, he writes about, his friend Gus, who's got a big dog's body but little short legs, but boy, does he know how to use them. Kathy's illustrated, the real Gus, and he writes about his friend Pepper, who's his best friend, and how, she has this eccentric hairstyle. The way she does her hair is very eccentric, like as if she's been electrocuted. And, I took a photograph, sent it to Kathy. It's all very accurate.
Yeah, we love Kathy at Booktopia. She came in to sign a book early this year, before COVID, or late last year.
Yeah.
And the way that we do our book signings at Booktopia, we have somebody sliding the book across, author signs it, and then somebody packs the book in the box. And Kathy was doing little cartoons in each of the books.
Oh, wow.
She was holding up the line.
Yeah, she can't stop herself. No, it is one of the delights of the book, actually, is Kathy's illustrations.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, I've got a couple of bookmarks that I just wanted to share, if I may.
Yeah, the best question today to Clancy or me, from person or dog, wins this. It'll be posted to you. Yeah. I don't know how this has happened because I would love to have one of Kathy's originals, and I have not been offered one, so you're very lucky. I might ask myself a question.
And this is the kind of illustrations you can see in there. I love this one.
Yeah.
And the dog's thinking he's having a stroke.
Yeah.
Very funny.
Well, that's a piece about the dog writes about when people you get to know him over time. So when the book starts, he's a puppy writing home and trying to train his humans. But as the book develops, he becomes a more mature dog, don't you, Clance? And he becomes a bit more of an activist for dog rights. And one of the things he's quite exercised about is the fact that when people put on a dog's voice, it's often like Scooby-Doo or something like, oh. He said, why? And he says if someone was to do his voice, it would be, sort of like a Norman Lindsay poem being read by Jack Thompson. Why is it all? And he sort of rails against the kiddie names that, people allowing their dogs to be named by the 2-year-old, and what sense is that? And he rails against all that language about dogs. And I think this is one of the things where in my reply, I actually agree with him. You know, all that language about, because human beings will claim they like dogs, and I think most human beings do, and yet we use all this language about, you know, if we learn typing, we'll go, the quick brown fox jumped over the lazy dog. Why is the dog lazy while the brown fox, which is a yellow-eyed predator, suddenly the glamour? You know, why isn't it the other way around? The quick brown dog jumped over the lazy fox. Why is a film that is no good called a dog?
Mm-hmm.
Most recently and most objectionably, when the film is Cats. Dog. I mean, how he complains about, you know, a dog ate my homework, and he points out how unlikely that is. Like, if a dog really did eat your homework, it would be your own dog. So you'd say, my dog Misha ate my homework, wouldn't you? You wouldn't say a dog as if your house is roaming strays in your house, one of which ate your home. He complains about that. He complains about the use of the term, you know, the doggy bag at a restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
And people ask for a doggy bag for the leftovers, and the waiter, who's presumably often a dog owner himself, scurries away and grabs. And, you know, Clancy's very angry about all this because he points out that most of the time the doggy bag is eaten by the humans in the cab on the way home. and further points out that many people who ask for a doggy bag don't even have a dog. Very unreasonable. So many of his points are right, but there are letters where, you know, in literary theory, there's that phrase, the unreliable narrator. You know, it's normally used about novels like Remains of the Day, you know, where the narrator is telling you a story, but you know, really, as a reader, that he's full of rubbish. And there are a few stories where there's a particular one where Clancy's telling the story of the visit from a visiting dog and how we're saying, now be a good host to TJ, you know, and the whole letter home is full of outrage about TJ and why TJ had to visit and how badly treated Clancy was, and how Clancy ended up getting put in my bedroom because he, you know, showed TJ, you know, a bit of attitude. And as I think any reasonable reader would think, Clancy, your behavior's not been perfect.
You talk about Clancy being an unreliable narrator, but there's two viewpoints. There's the Clancy viewpoint and the Richard Glover viewpoint. And why are you by default the reliable one?
Yeah, that's right. Well, and I think in many cases people will be on Clancy. I mean, most of the time people will be on Clancy's side. Yeah, and all the things they have to put up with, and in the sort of endless effort to train their humans.
Yeah,
which they all do, you know. And we think we're training them, and we've got this whole thing, oh, we'll just repeat something 70 times, but they're doing exactly the same thing to us, repeating something 70 times. And even the dumbest of human might finally get it. And so it has been with numerous things in our household. Yeah. The Darcy wants his breakfast at a particular time, he wants his dinner at a particular time, and he has trained us well to achieving all of that.
So I noticed we're starting to get some comments and some questions come through. So please do submit your questions. We'll get to them at the end. And best question, most creative question, funnest question, however we wanna cut it, wins this amazing Kathy Wilcox print.
Signed
Kathy Wilcox and signed by Richard Glover as well. So something that we've been asking all of our authors who come through and chat to us on Booktopia TV Live is just what it's been like for you in 2020, because not only have you guys been dealing with everything that everybody else has been dealing with, you've had a book come out on top of that, and then you know, being a broadcaster, being at the coalface in a way. What have you taken from this year?
I think resilience mainly. It's been look, we're in New South Wales, so it's been much easier for us. I don't mean to talk on behalf of people in Victoria, but you know, I just think Australians have done a really great job. I think we should be really proud of ourselves. I think as a nation, we get this sort of we hate patting ourselves on the back, and you know, a lot of the time that is a very nice characteristic. But there are times when it is important to understand that this has been a world-class effort, you know, together with our friends in New Zealand and Taiwan and Vietnam, and a real handful of places have done this the right way. And it's been quite, and the burden has been unequally shared. And I understand that there are people, I feel particularly sad for people for whom this was going to be the time for various reasons. Mostly people who are a lot younger than me, but the stand-up comic for whom this was about to be the season that they got their first invitation to the Sydney Comedy Festival to perform, or the young kitchen hand, and this was going to be the year where they got the promotion to chef, or there's a million other cases, or just about your love life. I mean, I think that when you're 16 and 17 and 18, we all know, because we look back and we understand that time was incredibly powerful time when all these memories that last your whole life are set down. And I do feel for particularly for younger people, and obviously for the elderly who have been under threat in nursing homes, that's been and isolated, it's been a separate problem, but a separate agony. But so I feel like personally, I think people who are in a job and in a relationship and in a house, we haven't suffered the burden of it in the way that other people have.
Absolutely.
So, look, it's been I love with a new book going out and talking in libraries and doing all that sort of thing. I love it. In some ways this book grew out of with the last book, Land Before Avocado. I had just started writing pieces in the voice of Clancy, and when I went to libraries, just every second person said, "When's Clancy going to write more? When's Clancy going to have a book?" And so absolutely, I was really advised by that and grew out of that. And I enjoyed, it was an interesting process because I really enjoyed writing them. I loved writing them and being in his seeing the world through his eyes. And it was instant that people really liked reading them. And I went on writing them without reanalyzing it much until the books come out. And it's really only in the last 3 weeks I've been thinking, well, why is that? Why have I so enjoyed writing it, and why have people so enjoyed reading? And I really do think, and maybe this is partly about these terrible times, that when you see the world through human eyes, even the most self-confident human being, there's a level of anxiety about everything when you look at the world. Human beings aren't very good at feeling that they are deserving of love. Human beings aren't very good at feeling themselves excellent. Human beings aren't very good at relaxing. Human beings, by and large, are tense about their relationship with reality. And dogs are not. And dogs understand that they're worthy of love. Every dog understands that they're worthy of love. They're very good at receiving love and giving love. They're enormously good at relaxing. And, we talk about human beings, again, especially this time, let's try to develop mindfulness. Well, they're naturally mindful. They naturally just enjoy the tactile moment. They are really good. Human beings worry about the fact that we see the surface of everything. With the best will in the world, we see races and genders and good looking and not so good looking. We see the world through all these prisms, even if we don't want to. And we know that dogs don't. And as soon as you run down to the park with Clancy or with any dog and run down to the park and see the park through their eyes, there's every dog is equal. Every dog is worth playing with. He's not concentrating on the breeds or whether one's big or one's small. I mean, one of the amazing things is that they'll play with a dog that's twice as big, and then the next thing they'll be playing with a dog that's this small, and they don't see it. They don't see whether the collar is cheaply made and tasteless and bought at Kmart or bought at Gucci. They won't see that. And so in all these ways, it's a very pleasurable way to spend time with them, to spend time looking at the world. So when he writes home, he's just writing home with this, I think it's self-confidence. He's kind of sure of his lovability. That's the pleasurable thing about being in his company. And this sort of, I think, a deep wisdom about what's important.
I like that you begin the book in your introduction in the obvious place, I think, for a book that's led us home from your dog, which is the Odyssey.
Yeah.
With a bit of a moment from the Odyssey that I guess spoke to you personally. What can you tell us a little bit about what that moment from the Odyssey is and what it highlights to you about dogs and love of dogs?
Some people talk about this human dog thing as if it's a recent and somewhat neurotic suburban thing. There's people, aren't they all crazy and they all spend $50 on this is some modern weird thing that people say. And it's really not true. We've really co-evolved over a long period of time, and not just in the sense of, I think some people say, oh yeah, well, they've been around, they used to guard the camp, guard the outskirts of the camp, allowing us to sleep at night. They understand that, but this emotional bond is really, really old. And so in Homer's Odyssey, which is, you'll know better than me, but it's 8th century BC or something. It's really old. And one of the most resonant emotional moments in the whole book is about Argos, who's Odysseus's dog. Now, Argos is raised by Odysseus as a pup, in Ithaca, and then Odysseus goes off on his famous travels for 10 years, and he leaves Argos there. And by the time he gets back, Ithaca's been taken over by these terrible people, the suitors, and Argos has just been sort of chucked out of the palace and is sitting, I think the word in the poem is a reviled creature, and he's sort of sitting on a muck heap, a very old dog by now, on his last legs really, sitting on a muck heap outside the gates of Ithaca. And Odysseus comes up, but he's in disguise because he wants to see what's happening truthfully inside Ithaca. And as he walks up, the dog sees him, and this is what he's been dreaming of. All he wants in life is the safe return of his master. That's his only ambition. And so when he sees Odysseus, he can see through the disguise, of course, he knows it's him. His tail wags and he looks up with bright eyes. But Odysseus can't recognize him, of course, can't acknowledge him without giving away the disguise, which kills him. But Odysseus has to walk past the loyal dog, and Homer writes about Odysseus mounting the palace steps with his single tear trickling down his cheek. And at that point, this is one of the saddest scenes in world literature. At that point, the dog dies. And the dog dies really, some people say because it's heartbroken. I don't think that's Homer's point. The dog dies because its urge to see the safe return was the most important thing, and he's seen it. And he's old and sick, and he can die now because he's certain that Odysseus has come back. So, the point of that story, I suppose, is to go back to this giving and receiving. There's a great passage, I quote from Tolstoy as well. But this, the essence of the whole thing is this great giving and receiving of love that they're so good, and of loyalty that they're so good at doing. And that's partly why I quote the Homer, but it's also just to show that this stuff is very deep in human beings. It's not some recent piece of suburban neuroticism.
I guess we could argue that this is a piece of suburban neuroticism potentially.
The lovely picture of the young dog on the cover, yeah.
So I love this. There's a quote from Clancy that I really loved, which is that if you put time into properly training your human, you do wind up with a happy and loyal companion for life. And that's given in the context of Clancy clearly not doing what you've told him to do and causing you a headache in the park. Humans and dogs can have such different aims, goals, and interpretations. Why does the relationship work?
Yeah, because we're training each other, I suppose, and it is about give and take, and it's like having a baby, isn't it? The only way to possibly cope is not to try to dominate, but to try to understand each other. And I believe in training dogs. I think an untrained dog is mean to the dog. So I'm not saying that, but they also train us, and they've got a right to train us. They've got a right to make their own, to demand you accommodate yourself to them. And there's a piece in the book about he loves digging holes in the backyard, and he calls it his wallow hollow. And I imagine that he's thinking he'll take on Andrew Forrest, for iron ore mining. The West Australians have had it to themselves for too long. And there was a day where he just dug this huge wallow hollow in a lovely bit of lawn, and I thought, oh no, this is terrible. I want my lawn. And so I got all the metal garden furniture and put it over the hole so he couldn't get to it further, and just I would rebuild it. And by the time we went out for the afternoon, and by the time we got back, he'd built an even large one right outside the back door. Sort of lying in it, luxuriating in it, as if to say, what do you think of this one, boss? This is even better, isn't it? It's even bigger. You know, it's even bigger, and it's more conveniently situated right outside the back door. And at that point you think, okay, you win. You know, you pull the metal furniture off the old wallow hollow, you know, go back to that one, and you put it on the new one. But this is the point where, as I say, I don't think the book's that fanciful in a funny sort of way, even though it's a dog writing. At that point, and I think every dog owner will know that, at that point he looked up at me with these beautiful liquid eyes of his, and he really was thinking, I don't think I'm anthropomorphizing to think, okay, I'll return back to the old hole, but why have you put me to all this trouble? If we're just going to agree that I can go back, why have I spent the whole afternoon slogging my guts out?
How do you get into the headspace of a dog to write from that perspective? Are you a method writer?
I find it very easy. Well, as I say, I hope it grows. I hope people will find the book absolutely believable, and after you spend a bit of time with it, you won't think of it. You won't think that I've assisted him in any way. I hope his voice is authentic and true, and grows out of his sense of the word. I suppose there are fanciful. He quotes literature a lot and stuff like that. Maybe that's a bit fanciful, but his attitude to life, I think, really does grow out of him, and so it grows out of me observing him down at the park. You know, the thing I just said about he doesn't see breeds in the same way as we see, you know, gender and races and sexuality. You know, he doesn't see that, and that absolutely just grows out of watching him.
And you mentioned that he's not the first dog you've owned either. You've got experience previously with previous dogs as well.
Yeah, that's in. I mean, the other. There's a forward and an afterward where I talk about. It's mostly Clancy's book, and I should say it's mostly funny, but the start and the end of it are a little bit more bittersweet, because it starts with this piece I wrote when my old dog died. You know, at the age of 15, he was a Kelpie, like Clancy, and he had a good long life. And when he died, I became overcome by this kind of really raw and unreasonable grief. And I say unreasonable because I felt quite guilty about it in a way, because it was so much stronger and unrestrained than the grief I'd felt when my parents died, you know, when my mother and father died. And that seemed to kind of almost an embarrassing, shameful thing to admit. The thing about writing is it's always good to throw yourself into the most difficult place. And if you're aware that you're embarrassed and shamed about something, then you should write about it and try to explore why that is. And you'll find that other people will chime with it in a surprising way, is my experience. So I wrote about it and try to work out what was the quality of the pain and the upset that seems so different and more intense than that you feel when a human dies. And is that shameful and unreasonable or reasonable? And I think in the end, I sort of concluded that it was reasonable, actually, because there's something about the nature, the quality, the pure quality of their love that creates this very pure grief. And it's not complex in the way that other grief is. It's just this this love on one side and this grief on the other. So anyway, I wrote about this, and then I, you know, in a long time of writing for the newspaper, I had more responses than I'd ever had before. I had hundreds of letters from people who wrote to me so beautifully. I mean, this was the other interesting thing, is that suddenly everyone was Tolstoy. People wrote with such elegance and love and beauty and style and grace about these dogs. And they told me these amazing stories. And there's 3 of them in the book, but really there were hundreds I heard. And the 3 in the book are a guy who was in a house fire, about to die. The dog came through and saved him and pushed him out the right way, because he couldn't see with the smoke, but the dog could. And the dog was blinded in the process of saving this man's life. But he was so proud, not only of the heroism of the dog, but of the fact that then the dog lived on for another few years blind, but was so clever that providing he didn't move the furniture in the house, he continued his life much as before, because he could. He was so proud of both those things. And then there was a letter from a farmer who, in the far west of New South Wales, who was suffering really. For the first time in his life, he'd really been overtaken by very bad depression, and he was starting thinking of the worst thing you can possibly think about in those circumstances, if you know what I mean. And the dog just came and just understood and would not leave, and pinned himself to this man's thigh and would not leave him for 36 hours or something until the man got into the car and went to town and sought help. And the farmer was completely convinced that this dog saved his life. And then the third one I quote in the book is from an Afghanistan veteran, an ADF guy who came back with really bad PTS and just couldn't relate to anyone in the world except for his wife, who sounds like an amazing woman. And after some months of this, she insisted they go down to the pound together, and they got this dog, and the dog wrapped itself around his body straight away. And again, this damaged soldier, this poor damaged soldier, writing so amazingly vividly about this dog and how it brought him back into the sunlight and into the light. And I also love the fact that in all these letters, all these hundreds of letters about these heroic dogs, these dogs which were like something from Greek myth, from Homer or or whatever, from Olympus, they all have names like Tigger or Wagger or they've all got these little tiny cute names, and yet the spirit is so huge.
So I asked around at Booktopia for anybody who might have a question from their pet for Clancy.
Yes.
Would you be up for attempting to?
Clancy awaits.
Excellent.
He's slightly asleep, just waiting for a good question.
All right. Well, this first one is from a dog that's near and dear to my heart. Her name is Poppy, and she's not my dog. She's my friend's dog, but I look after her a lot. And I think Poppy likes me more than she likes my friend. But so Poppy wants to know. She's a Labradoodle, and she's recently had to start taking some medicine. And what tips can Clancy offer to negotiate pill taking? Excellent.
So you get the pill,
yeah.
And you fold it in the cheese, and
yeah.
then do you want some cheese? Oh, I didn't need that hand anyway. No, I think pill taking should be rewarded somehow. So it depends what they're into. Some dogs are into cheese, others into other things. But those cheese slices are good because you can fold the.
Yeah. Excellent. All right, that's a good answer. All right, the next question is from another Kelpie by the name of Sam, and he wants to know what the most effective strategy is for training your human to bring you food.
Well, Clancy sings. So there's a piece. One of the letters home consists of his description of the scene at night where nothing's happening. He has a very dim view of the television we watch, which he thinks is of very poor quality. He prefers the History Channel, which is during the day, and a good Attenborough documentary. But and so at 9 he sings his cheese song, which is and my wife says, who's called Lady in his letters, she says, Clancy's singing his cheese song. Cheese. This is 9 o'clock at night. So I get up and I get him one piece of cheese. And whilst I'm there, I think, I might as well get a beer for myself since I'm here. And then Deborah says, whilst you're there, there's some raspberries and yogurt. You couldn't get me a little plate, could you? And so, and as Clancy sees it, the evening has been drawing to a very dull, Emily in Paris. Depressed ennui on the household, but through his cheese song, suddenly everyone's happy and the TV goes off and some music goes on and I've got my beer and he's got his cheese. So he's not only encouraging his own feeding, he's encouraging a lift in the general mood, successfully so, through the cheese song.
I love that. I'm glad that you performed the cheese song as well. That's great. Next up, a corgi by the name of Max wants to ask Clancy, why don't humans mark their territory in the same way we do? Max thinks it's because we lack confidence.
We mark our territory through the purchase of real estate.
That's true.
Much more involved process.
All right. We're down to our last couple of questions from Booktopia Pets, and then we'll turn it over to the audience. Again, just a reminder that there is an amazing prize up for grabs for the best question.
Sorry. Cue me.
Pick it up. Yeah. This incredible exclusive print signed by Kathy Wilcox and Richard Glover. So get your questions in. We'll be turning to them very shortly. The next question that I have from a Booktopia dog is a Maremma by the name of Cordy asks, what things would your human be surprised to learn about you?
About himself?
Yeah. What secrets does Clancy have?
Well, I think he knows all the secrets. So he writes a lot about because their sense of smell is so amazing. So they know everything about you. So if look, I would never do this, of course, but if, for instance, a gentleman stopped off at a pub on the way home, but claimed he'd been to Woolworths to buy the milk, Clancy might observe, as he does in one of his letters home, that he feels this Woolworths explanation is unlikely unless they've taken to serving beer and peanuts at Woolworths. He knows. There is a little bit of science in the book about just how incredible they're, and again, this is his sort of dog activist side, I suppose. He writes a bit about, and I think this is amazing. Think of all the people in Silicon Valley and in the CSIRO here who are desperately trying to make the most sophisticated machines they possibly can. And if you could make a machine that could sit at airports and identify through odor explosives or drugs or guns, or in Australia's case, fruit, our real obsession. If you could do that, you would make $1 billion. Every airport in the world would have one of your machines. And isn't it amazing that with the best science in the world and the greatest financial incentive in the world, human beings cannot do that. As he says in his letters, one of his letters, he exaggerates slightly, but the whole edifice of border force comes down onto the shoulders of one overworked beagle called Terry. It's true. Terry can do all these things that are totally beyond the most high level science in the world. Yeah, they're amazing.
All right, I think it's time for some questions from the audience and from the audience's pets. So first up, we have Manju has written in on behalf of Henry. Henry wants to know the best way to show love to his mum.
Well, I just think I think this is what they're really good at. I think they're just incredibly good at accepting love, which is the thing that human beings find difficult sometimes. They accept love. They know they're worthy of love, and they give it back immediately. Again, there's a lot of science in it about, I don't know where he gets all the science from. I think he looks it up on Google, to be honest. He writes about all this quite recent science about the drop in your blood pressure when you're patting a dog, especially if it's a dog it has to be an animal which you have an established bond, it says in the research. But given an established bond, it has this amazing effect. So I'd say one of the ways to show love is to let the lady pat you for a long time, and you'll know that you're saving her life, probably.
That's lovely. Next question is from Sam. Sam says, I love that in the book, Clancy admits to watching TV while you're out at work. Would Clancy ever write another book commentating on the current affairs of today he might be seeing on the telly?
He hates Q&A. he puts that into the, he includes that in, alongside Emily in Paris. He just doesn't understand the point. He just doesn't understand. A good documentary is what he's interested in. Yeah. Maybe at World War II.
Kimberly asks, what about the Clancy columns do you think has struck a chord with readers?
I think back to what I was saying before, is that there's something very pleasing about seeing the world through their eyes. It just feels like a very lovely place to be when you're looking out through their eyes. And and I could say it's their lovability or their loyalty or their natural mindfulness, but I actually think there's something quite self-confident about them. Maybe not all. I'm not saying dogs don't have neurotic sides or neurotic traits, and they all do. But there's something very self-confident in his attitude, so that if he if a gaggle of school kids passes by our house, on a public thoroughfare at 2:30 in the afternoon, as is their right, I believe, he will go insane barking, as if, the outrage. And then I'll remonstrate with him and say, Clancy, it's just, it's just little Ellen from next door or whatever. She's got a right to walk home. And again, he'll look at me. There's no shame in it. There's just, look, I'm just doing my job. I'm just trying to do my job. What would you say if, and you say it's just Ellen, but who's to say that she's not up to no good? Can you really vouch for her? So yes, he doesn't naturally believe he's done the wrong thing.
Yeah, I like that.
We all. So we're also full of self-doubt. We human beings.
Yeah.
And so I think that's part of what chimes with readers is whether you've got a dog or not. It's just very nice to imagine life through the eyes of a being who is not racked by some level of self-doubt.
Yeah,
sure of themselves and believes they've got a right to breathe, a right to be, and they're doing the right thing, and they're happy within their own skin.
And I also just want to say I liked in the book that you do have a disclaimer saying that your neighbor's not a bad guy.
yeah, that's right. Yeah. Suspicious about work. Yeah.
Next question is from Andrea. She asks, Bear, our 4-month-old red kelpie.
I don't know what Kimberly's question was, because I've got to work out which is the best question.
Oh yeah, Kimberly's question was. Let me just scroll back up. Why do you think Clancy columns struck a chord with readers?
Great chord, right? Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so
judging this on the go.
It is, yeah. I'll go back through and give you a reminder when it comes time to choose. So the next one is Andrea. She's asking, Bear, our 4-month-old red kelpie, would like to know how old Clancy is now and if he has succeeded in properly training you.
Yeah, well, he's 5 years old and he's absolutely trained us. I think that quite early in the book he talks about the whole breakfast thing, and that I had this ludicrous view of that I should get up out of bed, I should make a cup of tea, I should boil a jug, make a cup of tea, bring the tea and the newspaper back to bed, and with Lady read it. And then only at that point would I give him breakfast. And so he would, and he really did have this, as in dog training, they have this 70-time rule. You've got to, so on 70 occasions in a row, he came out with me as I was boiling the jug. And as I stood there waiting for the jug to boil, he would march between the bag of biscuits that he has in the morning and his bowl, and the bag of biscuits and his bowl, and the bag of biscuits in his bowl. And then on about the sort of 4th day or something, I really did yell up the corridor, hey, Deb, I might give Clancy, I might give Clancy his breakfast now. I'm waiting for the kettle to boil anyway, so I might as well do it. And so I did. And he would have an absolute right to think successfully, and in the years since, that's exactly what happens every single morning. He gets it first thing. That's and yes, and he I've forgotten the phrase he uses in the book. He writes about how this is the way the morning should. This is the way the morning should. I can't probably find it in a hurry, but yes. Now I can't find it, but yes, the morning is the morning when the spring is sprung, and all of that sort of stuff. He writes sometimes a little bit like Jeeves. Mm-hmm. Even though he's an Australian dog, he's got a quite high style.
Mm-hmm. I did like the section where he's talking about the fridge. And how he waits there patiently for food, but even though he gets his handful of biscuits and his handful of chicken, and you get your dinner and your dessert, and then you're going back for your 3rd beer, nothing for Clancy.
Yeah. And you don't be a greedy guts, Clancy. pot calling, kettle black.
All right. The next question comes from, I assume this is a couple's profile, Marge Bruce. Has Clancy ever packed his bags and left home in disgust of his humans?
No. He's not a runaway. I know some dogs are actually, that he's not a runaway. I think. I mean, we do have a gate and all that, but I think you could leave it all open and he wouldn't go. I hope. I think his disgust for his humans is tempered by the fact that he knows we're trainable. With sufficient effort.
I mean, he got a piece of cheese in the middle of this interview, so I think he's doing a good job.
After, yeah, exactly.
All right, Hannah asks, what do you hope readers will take away from this book?
I think. Well, I hope. I hope. I'm going to write the question down because I think it's good. I think. I hope, especially at this difficult time, it gives people a very warm feeling and will make them laugh out loud. If you don't laugh out loud a few times, I haven't. He hasn't done his job. I haven't done my job. But I think more than that, I hope it will connect us to, without being too corny about it, that there is this deep wisdom of dogs, and I think we can learn from them. And so, what I would like to think is that we might look at the way they circle 3 times and then collapse as if shot into this deep slumber. And we should look at that and think, there's something great about that. There's something great about the sort of lack of restraint of that. And we'll look at them in the park, willing to play, not judging the way they don't judge a book by its cover. And we might think there's wisdom in that. We live in a world where good-looking people are paid more than people who don't look. According to sociologists. The presidential election's coming up, and I think in this presidential election they're both tall guys, so it probably doesn't matter. But that if there's a big height difference, a tall man usually outvotes a shorter guy. How stupid is that? How shallow is that? So there's all these things we can learn from them if we would just see the world through their eyes.
I'm going to take this next one as a comment, but Kay says she would love to hear your voice of a cat. So maybe a cat.
Cat.
Yeah.
Well, we have had a cat once, and I do love cats and all that. Whether I would be able to, see the world as clearly as I think I can through a dog's eyes, through a cat's eyes, I don't know.
And we've got, I think this will be the last one. Kimberly, I might be the same Kimberly from before, but will Clancy be getting a cut of the royalties of the book?
There will be chicken as if through a hose pipe, if the book does well.
I'm sure.
There'll be chicken galore. It's for every song.
All right. Well, I think that's all the questions that we have. Who did you like out of that? Who?
I think Hannah asking what I wanted readers to take from it was good, because I think I do. It was a good question because I think there is something I want people to take from, apart from being amused by it. I do want people to be changed by it in this little way. Yeah.
All right. Well, Hannah, we'll send you a private message to grab your details, and you have won this signed Kathy Wilcox.
And I'm so envious, Hannah. I'm so envious because I want it.
Yeah. So I hope it turns up.
Well, there's only one of these,
And final question from me, Richard, before we go, is who will Love Clancy make an excellent Christmas present for, given that 'tis almost the season?
Yes, well, anyone who has a dog and loves the dog, or who's lost a dog, or who cares, who thinks they're wonderful, who thinks they're a wonderful, and always have been this wonderful companion for human beings. They would be perfect. People who don't like dogs, don't buy it for them.
Not for cat people.
For cat people.
All All right. Well, Richard Glover, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us this evening. We really appreciate it, and congratulations on a wonderful book.
Please.
And thanks, Clancy.
Hey, Clance. Yeah. Bye.
Bye. And viewers, if you would like to purchase a copy of Love Clancy, you can do it right now at booktopia.com.au. And if you're watching this video today, which is the 29th of October, we do still have signed copies up. But if you're watching it post this date, may not, because we may sell them all.
Signed dog stamp.
Signed and dog stamped. It doesn't get much better than that. All right, excellent. Thank you so much, Richard.
It was a pleasure. Thanks so much. Thanks for everyone for listening.
Bye.